Hey everyone, it is Tanya. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new here. Today I am back with another speed build, and we are creating a tiny castle for a fairy. A couple of months ago now, we got the Castle Estate kit in The Sims 4, which added a bunch of stuff for medieval castles essentially, and there has also been lots of speculation over the last few months about possibly getting a fairies pack for The Sims 4. It's like the most highly requested thing right now. So I thought I would combine those two ideas using our new castle items and the idea of a future potential fairy pack and create a tiny castle for a fairy. And I'm actually really happy with how this came out. I have been trying this idea a few different times over the last month or so, and none of them really came to fruition until I started on this one, and I'm really excited for you to see it. I'm not really sure what it was about this build, but while I was creating it, I felt like I was in a video game where you were playing as a fairy and like exploring the house. I don't know why that is. I just thought it was really fun, and honestly, I think a game like that would be really fun. I don't think I've played any games where you play as a fairy, and definitely not in a medieval castle. I'm always looking for new games to play. I really like cozy and relaxing games, and bonus points if they're really cute and like have magical vibes. So it was perfect timing. I was so excited when Midas Merge invited me to check out their game. So thank you to Midas Merge for sponsoring today's video. Midas Merge is a new mobile game where you can discover and nurture amazing creatures and gardens, and it's an addictive merge game. Plus, Midas Merge was created by the previous lead designer of The Sims 3. You can combine so many cute creatures to discover unique evolutions and distinct abilities across multiple gardens. And there is lore. You are helping King Midas and Queen Leah as they go on a journey to restore the Gardens of Gold. Through gameplay, you will hatch new creatures who, when fed with magical items, can create sunbursts that will illuminate the land that is covered in shadows, which was cast by the goddess of night, Nyx. There is a deep backstory to uncover why Nyx decided to cast shadows on the Gardens of Gold, and you can find that all out through gameplay. The creatures in this game are so cute, and I love curling up in bed, merging items, and restoring these beautiful gardens. I'm at level 8 right now, and I've just started my story with Nyx, and it's been really exciting, but no worries, I'm not going to include any spoilers. I'll let you figure that out for yourself. It's been such a lovely, relaxing way to spend my evenings, and I think it's awesome that you don't need to be connected to Wi-Fi to play. You can play offline wherever you want, and it's completely free. So if you'd like to download Midas Merge for yourself and merge these adorable creatures, I mean, look at these little deer. I love them so much. You can download it for free right now using the link in my description or by scanning the QR code on screen now. I've been really enjoying this game, and I think you're gonna like it too, so make sure you check that out. And thank you again to Midas Merge for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to it. So the shape is starting to come together here. I knew I wanted to have 2 towers using rounded rooms. You're not actually going to be able to access those on the top floors because those are the smallest rounded rooms you can have, and so a ladder does not fit in them because it can't go on a diagonal, and the only usable space in there is the diagonal like square in the middle of the room. So they're just decorative. I do delete the floors in them so that they won't count as tiles in this home. I believe this ends up being a 67 tile tiny home, and it has a full bathroom and bedroom. I feel like it's plenty spacious. It's just technically a tiny home, or is that what it's called for tier 2? I think it is. So it's a pretty good sized little castle. I was really happy with how the interior comes out and the exterior. I had a blast doing the landscaping on this one, getting all the pretty flowers. I worked with terrain tools here and just playing around with the roof textures as well. I end up changing them so many different times. I couldn't decide between some of the more fun colors and the ones that have moss growing on them from werewolves. So you'll see me change that, and I keep grabbing different items from the catalog and just kind of plopping them around outside. Some giant mushrooms, this adorable little like fairy house. I think that came with Growing Together, where there's like a little mushroom house on top of a hill. It's perfect. So I end up putting that in this build a few different times because it just screams fairies to me. So I felt like it was necessary here, and it was just nice also to find another reason to use the castle pack because I don't feel like I have a strong urge or a common use for the castle pack. I did build a really cool like modern extension like English cottage with it, which I really enjoyed. But I don't build castles very often, but I liked this idea. I like to do like fun and little occult builds from time to time and get to stretch that muscle of creating tiny homes and tiny builds because it's one of my favorite things to do in the game. But I don't know if I'd ever build like a really massive castle. I'm not sure how many people would play in that anyway. Is that something you typically do? Do you prefer to build or play in larger builds or smaller builds? I would love to hear that feedback because I am not sure what's coming up next on the channel. We just finished our really long apartment series where I was furnishing the New York City brownstones, and I love how those came out, but I'm not really sure what's next. And I'm not sure if the tour of that is going up before or after this video. So if it's not up already, it will be up soon. So I just wanted to mention that. I really wanted to do a video where I showed off all of those apartments. But anyway, we're not talking about that build right now. We are talking about this castle, and this is where I was playing with the roof textures. You can see that mossy one. I think it is so pretty. I do think I end up keeping that one in the end, but I think I used a different swatch of it. And I also played around a lot with terrain paint here. I wanted it to look magical, and I tried using this one with a couple of different swatches. I end up using some of the little stones that have the grass between them, this one right here, and I just wasn't sure. So this is what I start with, but it is going to change. And I left in a lot of the footage in this build so you could see the process because there was a lot of indecision. So I thought that would be interesting to watch since this wasn't the longest build. It definitely wasn't the shortest. I think it took me about 2 hours to create this, but I didn't cut out as much footage as I typically do since I think it's nice to have a mixture of those and not have it as choppy of cutting things out. I did use a lot of tulle in this build, as you can see here. It was mostly just to move a lot of the plants down into the terrain so that they weren't floating because I really wanted to have a lot of plants here. And this is where I'm erasing all of the terrain paint that I already did and fixing it because I really didn't like how it came out. It just looked sloppy somehow, and I thought I could do better. So I decided to go back and try and do it a little bit softer and kind of wrap it around the building as well. So you can see me starting to do that here. I redrew it a few different times, and I thought about adding some little stepping stones here, but they'd be floating on the terrain as well. So terrain paint was the best option, and this is already looking a lot better in my opinion. I layer some dirt over it to make it look not as pristine, and I also used a couple of different rocks here to split up that terrain paint. I think I saw somebody on Twitter do this at some point. Regardless, I thought it was really nice, and I also am just adding some overgrown grass and just really trying to make this whole area look a bit overgrown and have lots of fun plants. I am building this in the world of Henford on Bagley, which is the world that came with the Cottage Living expansion pack. So I do use a lot of the debug plants that came with that pack as well. They are some of my favorites in the game. I think they are so beautiful. The pink flowers, a lot of the grasses, and I think it just helps to blend it into this area. I'm building on the Cordelia secret cottage lot, which is a small lot at the top of the map by a waterfall, which I thought was like the perfect spot for a little fairy castle. Another spot that would probably work quite nicely is by the water in the countryside of Windenburg. I really like that area as well. I just feel like I built there too often, so I opted to build here instead. And here I am adding some rocks to this space and kind of shoving those down into the ground as well to frame out the area around this little castle. I like to do this sometimes. I feel like it just helps to frame the space, and there's a lot of rocks in the background of this area, so I thought adding them to this lot made a lot of sense. So just continuing to add those here, and I will be adding more onto the flowers in this space as well. And I actually love the tree I used out front. I think that was a special item you could get if you pre-ordered Cottage Living. It has a little tree. It is a tree. It has a little door at the bottom of the tree, which looks like it would be perfect for a fairy or a bunny to go into, since there are bunnies that came with Cottage Living, and I have a bunny hopping around my office right now. If you didn't know, I do have 2 rabbits, and one of them is hanging out with me right now while I do this voiceover, so that's kind of funny. As I was like, or a bunny, he just like hopped by me. I could see him in my peripheral vision, so that was really cute. Anyway, I am working on the floor plan now, and I think the bedroom space is perfect and was just like a really good use of the space. Like, I was very happy with this floor plan. I did have to add an extra little bump out for a bathroom though, because I didn't want it to be really scrunched. But I thought that was fine. We had plenty of tiles left over to do that. So just adding that now, and I will add some like additional roofing to accommodate for that as well. So just going to copy over this roof here, and ta-da, it looks fine. You can't even tell from the front of the build that that was added. And I'm going to actually move that room over slightly so I could extend the kitchen too. And the one thing that was very frustrating about this build is Rounded rooms and rounded walls are horrible in The Sims 4. They are so hard to work with, so I tried my best. I think it came out fine, but they are frustrating. It's really hard to place items. They kind of like don't want to go where you want them to, and they kind of bounce around, which is quite frustrating. So you might see a little bit of that in this build, but here I am just kind of placing some items around, getting an idea of where I might lay everything out. But then I'm going to go back outside and finish decorating the exterior before I actually furnish the interior. I end up coming in here with some more vines and adding a lot more pink. And I just really wanted the outside to pretty much feel finished before I went in fully furnished. That tends to be how I do these builds. So I thought that made a lot of sense. Plus, it's very common for me to do that when I come back to a build. So the first half of this build I did on one day, and then the second half I finished today when I'm recording this audio. So this was when I came back and was like, okay, I really want to add more to the outside. I also knew I wanted to add a pink tree to really tie in with the pink flowers and the vines that I had growing up the house. So I grabbed this one, and then I'm playing some more with the terrain over here, grabbing this archway and kind of shoving it into the ground again with Tool to make it seem like it's not floating. And I believe I get another one of those big rocks as well to kind of section off that space. So it looks like your Sims actually have to walk through that archway to get into this area. I am going to have to playtest this to make sure it works, but no worries. Whatever version is on the gallery is functional. I will make sure to check it before I post this. And if you'd like to grab it, it's available right now on the Sims 4 gallery. You can find it under my EA ID, which is Gryphi, Gryphi. You could also find this under the hashtag Gryphi, and that information will also be in the description down below as well. So over here is where I'm getting a couple of little stepping stones to that little tree door. I thought it was really cute. So I thought it would look nice to have a space that maybe the little fairies or the bunnies could have a walkway to their front door. And I wanted this house to have a lot of spots for gardening. So I do have quite a few planter pots outside, and then I later on will be adding the flower arranging table. I thought that made a lot of sense. I feel like it's a pretty common thought that fairies are very interested in gardening and like in tune with nature. So that's what I was really leaning into when it came to furnishing this build. I think that's normally what I decide to go for, but I would love to know if there are other common themes or things you would include if you were creating a build for a fairy. I suppose if we ever get a actual pack that brings fairies to The Sims 4, I'll have a better idea and, way more items to work with that are meant for fairies, whereas right now we don't have them. So I used a lot of the castle kit and some Realm of Magic, a lot of cottage living, honestly, because that has a lot to do with like farming and gardening. So I thought it fit quite nicely. The counters I'm actually using, though, are from Horse Ranch. I think they're quite nice. I don't use them very often because I feel like they're very stylized, as in they're a bit more rustic, and I don't necessarily always want that in my builds, but I thought that they worked really nice here. I also brought in some of those vines from outside, and I'm using the same wallpaper on the interior here as well that has the greenery growing up it. I think it looks so pretty and magical, and I just love this sort of build, so I would be so down to actually get fairies in the game. I think I'd have a blast decorating for them, so I'm so on board for that. I'm actually really curious what content we're going to get this year because we're almost done with the first quarter, which was only supposed to be a couple of kits. I think we're supposed to have one more, but after that, for the rest of the year, I have no idea what to expect, and I'm excited at the aspect of that. I really hope we'll have more game packs this year, maybe more stuff packs, but I'm interested to see what the expansions will be and any updates. And last year I felt like was a pretty good year. We got 3 expansions last year, and I think they were pretty decent ones. We got Growing Together, Horse Ranch, and For Rent. So I have no idea what to expect this year. I would love to know what everyone else is thinking of. But anyway, I'm starting to decorate the kitchen space here. I cluttered up this corner counter with a bunch of like kitchen pieces. We have some jars and utensils for the stove. I also added a bunch of like little buds for planting. Those are from the Greenhouse Haven kit. I thought that kit came in a lot of handy for this build as well. So just lots of gardening stuff all over the interior and exterior of this build, trying to make it feel lived in, but still functional. It's a pretty small space with things kind of like scrunched together. But like I said, I feel like it's kind of spacious. It's just I wanted to fit a lot in here. So some of the items are pretty close together. Also, you can see I kept in the whole process here of like placing everything in and moving the counters around. It was a lot of fiddling with this, but I think it's nice to see from time to time. And a lot of these builds, I didn't for this one, but a lot of these builds I do build over on Twitch first. So if you're curious and would like to come join in the future and be part of like the real-time build process, I do stream 3 to 5 days a week over on twitch.tv/Gryphi. So I'll have that link down below if you'd like to join us. I'd love to have you there. Anyway, I am trying to figure out a dining table now. I thought about using this one from Paranormal, but I actually ended up going with the one from Cottage Living in the end. Of course, it matches everything perfectly because of the style I was going for here. And I used the one with the bunnies on the tablecloth. I think it is so cute. And the mushrooms. I just really love the patterns from that pack. I almost used the bunny rug in this house as well, but I didn't in the end because I thought it was a little bit too matchy-matchy with the tablecloth here. So I decided to get rid of that. I also had considered keeping the table like in the kitchen like that, but I decided it made more sense to put it in this rounded section of the build. And I do end up getting like a sort of counter in the middle of the kitchen. I ended up putting a accent table there or a console table to look like a makeshift island, and I think it looks really cute. That ends up making the space feel a little bit more lived in my opinion. And also I tried putting these little pieces on the walls. I just thought it was something interesting, but I did get rid of one of them in the end, the first one, because I decided to put a bookcase there instead, which I thought looked really nice. And once again, really just made the space feel a little bit more realistic. Not just having this perfectly planned out wall with things spaced perfectly, just having like a bookcase tucked in over here and, furniture just wherever you can fit it, I think makes sense. Also, I used this little moss like rug. Those are from, oh my goodness, Snowy Escape. I don't think I've ever used that rug before because I don't know where you're supposed to use it. I've never had an idea for that. But it made sense to me inside a house for a fairy to use a moss rug. So I put that under the dining table. And then for the living space, I really wanted like a low to the ground cozy couch. And this is a little bit modern for the space, but I still felt like it had the correct vibe. So I used this couch from the Book Nook kit. I thought it was really cozy. And then I'm adding some greenery over the window. That is a curtain from Blooming Rooms, I'm pretty sure. And I think it's really pretty. And then for coffee tables, these are actually both stools. One of them is a mushroom from Cottage Living and the other one is like a tree stump from Outdoor Retreat, and they just felt perfect. I wanted to include some things like that in the interior of this build, and I thought that they were the perfect spot. So your Sims can't put any items down on them, but they can sit on them. So that's a nice touch, I suppose. But this is that console table I had mentioned, just kind of sectioning off the kitchen a little bit more here, and I cluttered it up with a teapot and some plant decor from the Blooming Rooms. Actually, not from Blooming Rooms. This time it's Greenhouse Haven. So I got some more little plants here and a couple of extra pots for them as well. And then I should be getting a trash can over by the main entrance as well as a mirror. But first, I'm like, oh, I need the flower arranging table. Let's put it outside. I didn't keep it where I put it just now. I'm going to move it around towards the end of the build. But I did kind of chuck it out there and was like, I'll figure this out later. I just knew I wanted to include it. But first, we're decorating the bathroom. I feel like this room was pretty simple, but I really liked it. I just didn't feel like it needed to be super cluttered, but I like the touches that I did add, like the flowers that are up on the sink. And I love the mirror. I also ended up adding this curtain from For Rent in here. I've been using this a lot more recently. I just think they're really nice. And I paired the bathroom with this toilet from Vampires. I really wish this had a swatch where the pipe going up the back was not gold, but I thought it was okay anyway. It felt correct for this space. And then I just got another floral piece on the wall here and a painting over here as well from Realm of Magic. I ended up grabbing the one that has like a butterfly and a frog and stuff on it. And then we are going to actually decorate this hallway. I end up just getting a plant over in the corner. The one from Journey to Batu, which I just think is such a nice plant. I use it way too often for that pack, but I think it's pretty and it worked well here. And then I added a mirror right by the entryway. And then we are finally working on the bedroom, the final room of this house. I did keep the bed that I was starting with since I started the interior of this build, which is one from Outdoor Retreat. I just think the twisted wood looks so nice, and I tried to bring in some of the vines from outside, but they had such a dark shadow in here. It didn't bother me as much in the kitchen, but in here I just thought it looked a little weird. So I will be getting rid of that, but I really liked the curtains I used in here, and of course adding a hanging plant. And I tried so many different bedside tables in here, and they just would not fit. The placement in here is very frustrating because of the diagonal and the rounded room, but also it was just a small space. You can see me like struggling to place things down. And these ones aren't even bedside tables. They're little stools from the Jungle Adventure Pack, so your Sims can sit on them. But nothing else was really working, so I thought that these would probably fit, and they look really nice and match the vibe of the house. So I opted for those, and I got a couple of books over here with a plant and a lantern on top of them. And over on the other side, I believe I got a couple of baskets. Yeah, these right here. And that's most of the decoration for this space. I also get a wardrobe over here and this really pretty mirror from the Basement Treasures kit. The wardrobe I grabbed, I believe it's from Movie Hangout. It's the one that has the florals on the front of it. I tried a couple of different things before I got to that though, but I think this is such a beautiful wardrobe and really fit the space. I was glad that I decided on that one. And then we are heading on outside to finish up the landscaping before we head on into screenshots. So I just wanted to take a moment here to thank Midas Merge again for sponsoring today's video. As a reminder, there's going to be a link in the description down below, as well as a QR code on screen if you would like to go ahead and download the game and try it out for yourself. I've been having so much fun with it, so I think you'll enjoy it as well. And with that, we're going to move this flower arranging table and then head on into screenshots. Make sure to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and click that bell to be notified when I upload. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye, everyone.